In this tutorial, we're going to demonstrate how to make a parametric coffered ceiling that allows you to define the size and position using a rectangular spline, as well as adjusting the spacing between the horizontal and vertical beams. Really though, this is an excuse to demonstrate the main inputs of the A2S generator, plus a handy macro called segment Y roll that allows you to target bits of a 2D array that aren't normally possible without resorting to an expression. These parts include the intersection where the horizontal and vertical beams cross, as well as the T-shaped intersection where they meet the sides. This tutorial is therefore useful for a very wide variety of objects, and the techniques demonstrated could also be seen as a successor to our older Windows tutorial. In most of our tutorials, we start with the source geometry already modelled, but a few users have asked for a little more information about preparing the assets for RailClone. And so in this tutorial, we'll start from nothing and demonstrate the modelling process from start to end. If you'd like to follow along, then scene files are available from the i2 software website. First of all, we need to model a section of ceiling that can be sliced into jigsaw pieces to become a parametric object. Of course, there are a lot of ways to do this, but in this example, I'll trace an image of a typical profile using a spline, and then convert it to polygonal geometry using the bevel profile modifier. To do this, find yourself a picture of a profile, or make one up. I'm using this one from a manufacturer's website. You'll find plenty like it online, and of course your architect may have specified a particular design. Next, we need to add the image to a plane so it can be traced. For these kinds of quick temporary references, I often use a plugin by Pixelmoon called Copy Paste Image. To use it, just copy the image to the clipboard and then run the script in Max. It's a very simple but handy tool for quick modelling jobs. It creates a plane of the correct proportions and then applies the bitmap to the face. You can choose which world axis to align to, change the opacity, and even change the temporary directory to something easier to find if you do think you're going to need to access the images later. You may also spot it that I'm using another Pixelmoon tool to run this script. It's called Favorite Scripts, and all it does is adds a menu that you can trigger from any hotkey that lists the directory in which you've saved all your favourite Mac script tools. I've added links to both scripts to the video description in case you'd like to check them out. So next, let's create a new line object and trace the profile. Here, I'm only tracing one side of the profile so that we can create the perimeter of the ceiling. We'll create the double-sided profile used by the interstitial beams using a symmetry modifier in a minute. I'm assuming most people know how to use Max's spline tools, so I've sped this part up. Don't forget, scale the spline to the correct size once you're done, and then reset the X-form. To turn this into paneling, create a square rectangular spline about 1 meter on each side. Add a bevel profile modifier and change the mode to classic. This mode allows us to use a spline to define the profile instead of using the modifier's built-in graph. Click on Pick Profile and select the ceiling profile spline from the scene. You may find you need to rotate the profile. If so, just go to the Profile Gizmo subobject and then use the standard rotate tools to orient the profile correctly. If necessary, add a normal modifier to the object and enable flip normals. This is a ceiling, so remember we want the face direction to be downwards. Now we have a single panel, but we want the model to include central bars plus a junction where they meet the sides in the middle. To do this, we'll use one or more symmetry modifiers. In 3ds Max 2022 and above, you can use just one modifier since it's been improved to enable multi-axis slicing. In earlier versions, you'll need to use 2 modifiers, but the principle is exactly the same. So we'll enable X and Y symmetry and disable Z. Turn on snaps and right click to open the snaps menu. Then I'm going to enable midpoint. Then go to the symmetry modifier's mirror sub-object level. Move the gizmo so that it snaps to the midpoint of the bottom left diagonal edge. This should give you a nice proportionately sized perimeter as well as a cross member on the X and Y axis. If you do want to move to any other corner other than the bottom left, then you'll need to use the modifier's flip settings to create the same effect. If you plan to use multiple materials, then add an edit poly modifier and assign material IDs. Here I used material ID 1 for the ceiling and an ID of 2 for the beams. We now have the basic geometry. To create a flexible RailClone style, we will need to slice this into several parts. In fact, I'll create 16 pieces divided into 4 rows. Starting from the bottom upwards, they're as follows. So we have a start bottom segment, then the bottom itself. Then we have an intersection where the X evenly and the bottom segments come together. And then we have the end bottom, and that's the bottom row. Now we have what I would call the default row, which has a start section on the left-hand side. We've got the default section, which is the panel. We've got a vertical X evenly section, and then the end. And that finishes that row. Next up, we have the Y evenly row, which is the horizontal division. So this has a start, as you can see here, where the evenly section meets the left-hand side. We've got the beam itself, Y evenly, we'll call this. Then we've got an intersection where the horizontal and vertical beams come together. And then finally, we've got the right-hand side at the end, where the horizontal beam meets the right-hand side. That's the third row. The fourth row then, in the top, we have the start top corner, then we've got the top itself, we've got a section where the X evenly meets the top, and the end top up here. These are our 16 pieces. So to create these from the geometry we just modeled, the easiest way is with a slice modifier. It can be done manually, but because this process can be a little bit tedious and take a bit of time, we often use an unofficial script called RailClone Slicer. It's available for free on our website in the downloads for this tutorial, and the link's in the video description. It allows you to create and control all the necessary slice modifiers from a single interface to prepare models for the 2D array, but also the 1D array, so it's useful for a variety of purposes. All you need to do is drag it to the max viewport to run it, and then from then on it's pretty straightforward to use. So first of all, you'll just click on the Pick Geometry button and select your geometry from the scene. Next, we enable the elements we wish to create slices for. So we'll begin with the start. Enable the checkbox and increase the distance to move the slice plane until it's just past the left-hand side beam. Here I'd probably note the value because it might be easier to use it again for the other entries rather than kind of eyeball it every time. So now do the same for the right side, and as I say, I'll copy and paste the values. Several of the slices have 2 values. You see there's a position and a size. So one example is X evenly, but here we'll leave the position centered but increase the size so that the slice planes are either side of the central beam. On the other hand, for the default segment, you'll need to move the position to the center of one of the panels and then increase the size. That takes care of the slices on the X axis. Now we'll do all the slices on the Y axis. So I'm going to disable the global size, which does what you'd imagine, but we'll need to use different slice sizes here. And then we'll enable bottom and increase the size. And then do the same for the top. I'm going to enable Y evenly and then increase the size to encompass the middle beam. And then finally, I'm going to enable the default and then move the position to the center of one of the panels and then increase the size. That's it. Once you're done, click on the Slice Geometry button and the script will create all 16 parts automatically. To remove the slice planes from the original geometry, should you wish to, you can just click on the C button. If I just move this out of the way, you can see here are our 16 pieces. Now all we need to do is to pop these pieces into a new RailClone style. So first of all, let's create a spline rectangle to define a temporary ceiling area. Then we'll create a new RailClone object and go to the Modify panel. Open the Style rollout and add a new A2S generator. This generator is used any time you wish to create a 2-dimensional array. As we'll see, it constructs the objects in a grid by allowing you to target specific parts of the array with different geometry. Before we add geometry though, we need to specify the size of the array, and we'll do that using the closed spline we just created. So go to the generator settings and enable extend XY size to area. When this is enabled, RailClone will automatically calculate the size of the array to ensure that it's large enough to fill a closed spline wired to the clipping spline input. So now let's add that spline, create a new spline node, and pick the spline from the scene. Wire it to the clipping spline input. Now we'll add the geometry, starting from the bottom. Add a new segment node and pick the start bottom segment from the scene. Wire it to the input with the same name. So there's one setting we'll need to change, and we'll need to change it for all the segments. And that's to determine how they align on the Z axis. By default, RailClone will align segments on the Z axis using the bottom of their bounding box. But because several of the segments we created earlier are different heights, that means they'll move down and out of the correct position. To fix it, we'll go to the segments alignment setting and change Z to pivot. Now to save doing this every single time we add a segment, remember there are 16, we'll just copy and paste this one to import all the other geometry. Actually, there is another way. It's possible to batch import multiple objects by right-clicking on the segment node and clicking Clone Multiple. You'd then be able to pick all of the segments you want to import, and each would generate a new node using the existing settings. This can be a fantastic time saver, and the only reason I'm not going to use it in this tutorial is because I'd like it to be clearer visually which of the source segments are wired to which parts of the generator. So I'm deliberately slowing it down. So instead, what I'm going to do is clone this segment and then select the end bottom geometry from the scene, and then wire this to the input with the same name. So now I've got the left and the right hand corner. To fill in between these two, I'll clone the segment node again and wire it to the bottom input, and then pick the appropriate segment from the scene. Now we'll do the same for the top. Clone and wire the start top, end top, and the top segments to their relevant inputs. So we've got the top and the bottom, but now we want a row to fill in between the two. So to do that, we'll clone a segment node again and select the start geometry. Then wire it to the start input. Now, you may have realized by now, looking at this geometry, that actually it's probably not necessary to create so many individual pieces, because many of them are identical, but just mirrored on the X or the Y axis. So to demonstrate this, an alternate approach that reduces the amount of geometry you'd need, I'll just show you how you can reuse the start geometry for the end. All you'd need to do is to take a mirror operator and wire it to the end input, and then wire the start segment to that. By default, this node flips geometry on the X axis, but there are further options to flip it on the Y and the Z axis, so you could actually get away with far fewer segments than I'm actually using here. So we now have the perimeter done. To fill in the remaining area, clone a segment node once more and select the panel geometry from the scene. Wire it to the default input. We now have a parametric panel done. If you change the size of the spline, the panel size also changes. Now let's add the divisions on the X and Y axis. If we refer to the original model, we need an input for where the vertical divisions meet the top and the bottom, where the horizontal divisions meet the start and the end, and where the divisions intersect. But as you can see, there's actually only one input each for the X evenly and the Y evenly divisions. And this is where the new Y roll macro comes in. It's used with any vertical input, and this is important. So you can only use it in the start input, the end input, X evenly, and X marker. In any other input, you won't get any results. And what it does is adds several additional inputs, as we'll see now. So we'll add this Y roll macro to the X evenly input to start with. Now we'll clone a segment node and pick the X evenly geometry from the scene. I'm going to wire this to the macro's default input. And effectively what this is the same as if I'd wired it directly to the generator's X evenly input. To change the spacing at this point, you can go to the generator's rules and adjust the evenly distanced settings. While you're here, I'd also enable adaptive mode for both evenly axes, which will give you a much more even distribution instead of scaling only the beginning and the end spaces. Now, as you can see, actually we've broken the array a bit, and that's because we don't have segments for the top and the bottom intersections. So let's fix that. Clone a segment and pick the X evenly bottom geometry from the scene. Wire it to the macro's bottom input. Do the same thing for X evenly top, this time wiring it to the macro's top input. And as you can see now, we have correct vertical divisions. Now let's add the horizontal divisions. Remember I said that the Y roll macro is only used in vertical inputs, so that means that we don't use it in the Y evenly input since that's a horizontal. Instead, into this input we'll just add the Y evenly segment as we would normally. So where do we use the Y roll macro? The answer is in the start and the end inputs, as both of these are targeting vertical parts of the array. We can add one after the existing segment, wiring the segment to the macro's default input. Now at this point there's another thing we need to change. Select the generator and go to the Rules tab and scroll down to the Evenly settings. You'll notice that by default the X evenly and Y evenly extend to side options are enabled. In order for the macro to work correctly, the Y evenly extend to side option actually does need to be disabled. This setting determines whether the segments wired into the evenly inputs extend to the sides or not. Now we're ready to add the remaining segments. Clone a segment node and pick the Start Y evenly segment from the scene. Wire it to the macro's evenly input. You'll see the geometry appear on the sides. And there's one last piece of geometry we need to target. That's where the X evenly and the Y evenly divisions intersect. To do that, we go back to the macro wired to the X evenly input. Clone a segment and wire it to the macro's evenly input, and then pick the intersection from the scene. Assign a material, and the style is now complete. We can quickly assign it to any rectangular splines to create a procedural ceiling of any size. So sometimes we'll get comments that maybe a simple ceiling like this could have been done much more quickly manually. And for one-off projects, that might well be true. But in every case, what we aim to produce is an asset that can be reused again and again, saving time in the future. And for one that also can be adjusted should the architect request changes. With that in mind, in this final step, I'll add a couple of parameters for the X evenly and Y evenly spacing that can be controlled directly from the modifier panel. So to do that, I'll right-click on the generator and select Export Parameters. From the list, check X evenly and Y evenly distance, and then click OK. You'll see new inputs will be created. Now create two new numeric nodes. Change their type to scene units, and finally, wire them to the new inputs. You can now control the spacing from the Modify panel, and to demonstrate, I'll unhide the layer with my interior scene, then go to the Base Objects rollout to assign the new spline. Next, I'll go to the Parameters rollout and adjust the spacing of the panels. As you can see, the style is totally usable and editable without needing to open and understand the graph. And that concludes this tutorial. Now, although this tutorial used the example of a coffered ceiling, the techniques and the understanding of how the A2S segments jigsaw together will help you to create a huge number of different types of objects. In fact, the windows and the cladding were created in exactly the same way. If you open the scene, you can explore the graphs and see how the same type of base geometry was used. And once you've done this once or twice, you can even just swap the geometry of the segments to create different parametric objects in a matter of minutes. We hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you haven't done so already, please feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get notifications for more handy tips on how to use RailClone and Forest Pack coming soon.